All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Mood Lifters. Today is a very special episode. I got Rocco here. Rocco has a background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and today we're going to talk about exercise and mental health and its correlation to Jiu-Jitsu.
What's up, everybody? I am a young entrepreneur. I got a protein bar business that is catered towards Jiu-Jitsu MMA fighters, and I've been training Jiu-Jitsu for only about 5 years. But I started training Jiu-Jitsu when I was, I think, really depressed, stressed, anxious, everything that the Mood Lifters, talks about. So I met Tony in person last January, and he's an amazing young man who's also started training Jiu-Jitsu. But more than that, totally down for his mission and totally down to partner with anybody who's just trying to figure out this whole mental health shit, because it's some shit, and the only way we're going to be able to beat it and figure out better ways to combat it is coming together and figuring out what really works for people. So Jiu-Jitsu really helped me with it. It really helps me with it. So yeah, hope that's the introduction you're looking for, Tony.
That's perfect, man. Perfect. We're gonna segment into that, but that's definitely okay. I would love to hear more a little bit later down the line. But I wanted to ask you, how'd you get started with Jiu-Jitsu?
So I was in college, and it's my sophomore year of college. I had a horrible freshman year of college, horrible, and not for anybody else's reason but myself, which, I put myself in the plot in a little hole of darkness. But I was always really big into sports and contact sports in high school. And I loved team sports. I loved contact sports. I founded the rugby team in my high school. I really liked rugby. I was always scared shitless before every game, but I really liked rugby. And then I came to college, and I'm 5'6", 140 pounds. I'm not playing club basketball. I'm not playing club anything really. I tried out for the rugby team, and I was on the rugby team, but I was playing rugby in West Virginia, and I was playing rugby in Guam before that, and I just didn't like the rugby there. I just didn't enjoy it, and I was like, am I really going to be spending my college years playing rugby? Probably not. So I stopped working out for a bit for that whole year, and I was, flirting on and off with trying to lift, but I never really liked it. There was just I don't know what it was about lifting, and nothing against people lifting. I think obviously lifting is amazing. I think more people need to lift. And I still lift now twice a week for jiu-jitsu, but it just wasn't really my thing. It wasn't getting me to wake up and getting my heart racing. I dreaded going to the gym because I was just thinking, what am I doing this for? So my sophomore year of college, I started this intense self-improvement where I just wanted to be a better person all around. And I forget what made me want to go check out jiu-jitsu. But I saw that my school had a club jiu-jitsu, and I heard it was, great for, and again, that's when I was started to challenge my mental health journey to be a better person. And I heard it was a great, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to join a martial art because I just felt weak. I felt insignificant, and I wanted to do something that could make me feel confident in my body and my skin. Especially in West Virginia. I love West Virginia, but there's always fuckers. You go out, there's always a fucker. There's always some drunk fucker, So I wanted to be comfortable in my skin, confident in situations. And I was always angry too. I was always just angry at everything. So I went to jiu-jitsu because I wanted to learn how to defend myself. And I just started training. And there was this kid who dropped me off, and he was like, bro, I don't think I'll be going back. And I was like, yeah, I'll be going back. I went back the next day. I never saw that guy again. And then from there, man, I just made it a daily habit. Started going 2 to 3 times a week whenever my schedule could allow it at first, being a busy student. And then gradually just built up till I got better. But so yeah, that's how I started. And then I went back to Guam, and Guam was great. Guam's great, a great jiu-jitsu island. I mean, per capita, there's probably more jiu-jitsu players there than anywhere else. And I trained at a famous academy called Purebred Academy in Guam. And it really is It's a special place. And I trained there, and I always heard about purebred growing up in Guam. I always heard about purebred. I'm from Guam, and I always heard about purebred growing up, and I always wanted to check it out. Like I said, I always loved contact sports. I always wanted to learn how to fight, but I was just scared. I was scared to put myself in that situation. Um, I thought it was too tough for me, but I finally ended up training there, and I got back to Guam that Christmas break, and then I realized, oh shit, my gym back in West Virginia sucks. So, and that made me realize I was not really doing jiu-jitsu. And then I came back, and then, yeah. So that's how I started.
Dude, I love that, man. I love the fact that, like, I come from a weightlifting background, and, we talk about weightlifting from time to time. And one of those things where it's like, I even say to like some of my clients, not for everybody. Some people just hate it. Some people prefer just machines. Some people just want to do something else, like a contact sport, like a martial art. And that's kind of like how this journey is. Like, you kind of pivot in a direction that you feel like you naturally gravitate towards, and then you get after it. I also wanted to make note of, when you're saying you have that pent up anger and stuff. I feel like that's a lot of us guys, we have that, we have that aggression. And like, one of the things that I've already learned from martial arts is that, when you're like very entrepreneurial, you're very ambitious, you have this like pent up aggression, like aggressive energy. And like, the martial arts keep you grounded, because you're going up against people that are on the same level as you, or even better. And it's very humbling, because you'll miss something, you'll get hit in the face, and I just think that it's something that's very humbling, and it kind of helps us handle that more aggressive energy and stuff. Overall, I wanted to ask you, how does like getting into how does your jiu-jitsu sessions feel after going through them entirely? Do you feel like much better? Do you feel like you're a little bit more tired, or how do you feel mentally in that regard?
I think it's changed throughout the years as your skill level gets better. When I first started training, I always felt good. I always felt good. I always felt relieved of something, and I've always felt accepted. Because I think when I first started training, when people don't know how to fight, but they like to talk a big game, they're always talking about how much they'll kick someone's ass, how much they'll. And I remember before that, when I would also think like that. What would happen if you got into a fight at the bar downtown? Like, what, you just start swinging. And when I first started training, I think there was like that reality to me that, like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know what I would be doing if I actually got into a fight. And then it also made me realize, like, why would I ever really want to fight? Why would I actually ever want to go out just to fight somebody?
That's real, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's just really no. And I think that beginning year, 2 years, when I was just getting my ass kicked, because I'm a small guy, I'm 5'6", 140. That first year, 2 years was tough for me, man. I didn't get my first submission. I know some people get their first submission like soon, especially if they're already like a wrestler or something. It took me 9-10 months to get my first submission. And I remember, and there was a guy who, it was like his first week as well. I remember going through that year too, those first 2 years, and I just didn't know what was going on at all. Just a sign of acceptance for myself that I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I would do if I got into a fight. And I think that is how I felt, but it was a good sort of acceptance. Like, now, the better I get, especially I train in an amazing academy, Marcelo Garcia Academy. I love Marcelo Garcia. It's a huge blessing. And people there are just so good. It's so good. And there's a different style of jiu-jitsu. It's like fight, fight, fight that I've never really been used to as much. And I leave there now, walking the streets back to New York. I leave confident. I leave confident that I would be able to protect myself, my family, my friends, if I had to, So, and it took a while, but I think that difference, that acceptance of I wouldn't know what to do. And even now, you still never know what to do. It's a fight, but I feel way more confident at the end of my training than when I first started, especially as you grow into your own style of grappler, and you start finding things that actually work and work somewhat consistently, especially against someone who's newer or not as good compared to when you first start and you just nothing's working, nothing goes your way, you don't know what you're doing. You think you know something, but you really don't know anything. Because I still don't know anything, but there's definitely moves now that work a lot better for me than when I first started. And actually seeing that progress, actually growing as a grappler, like actually hitting things that you never would have thought you would be able to hit. It's it's life changing. It makes you realize like you can't really do anything. You just got to keep fucking working hard and pushing through to something.
That's awesome. That actually ties into what I was going to ask you, how jujitsu helps you with other aspects of your life, with your business, with, other personal development stuff and so on.
Yeah. So, it's weird because my coach, my old coach in Guam, Stephen Roberto, used to always say, how does my jujitsu reflect my life, and how does my life reflect my jujitsu? And at first I thought it was corny, but the more you train, especially in a good gym with people pushing you, like you start to realize how habits in your jiu-jitsu really do reflect your life. Let's say, you're going through something where you give up, like I used to get really tired and give up, especially when I first started. I used to know a move was coming and I used to let people hit it on me. And I would just stay on the ground, not play defense, and get my ass kicked. And then, I looked at that and I realized that's probably how I was in my life at that time. If I was rejected by a girl, if I was rejected by a friend, if I did bad in a test, if a customer said something bad to me, that's what I would have done. I just would have really just laid on my back, known it was coming, and given up. But now, you do better. You start training jiu-jitsu well. You're not giving up. You're fighting harder. You know what's coming. And in fact, you're on the offensive now, and you're feeling more confident about being on the offensive. Your social life will get better. You're going to feel more confident aggressively on your social life. Or maybe your social life, you're more aggressive socially. I believe you're going to be more aggressive on the mats. You don't feel as afraid to get rejected by a customer. I think you're going to be maybe more experimental, try things during jiu-jitsu. So, if that answers, I think the more you train, you realize, your jiu-jitsu is an art of self-reflection. And the way you play your jiu-jitsu subconsciously is kind of how you act in your regular life even if you don't realize
it. I agree with that, man. 100%. I was going to say too, it's like, when we say like aggression is a little bit more of like assertiveness, and it's like used interchangeably in this talk. So I definitely can see that. I know when I first started doing some martial arts stuff with like little taekwondo basics and stuff, I had zero coordination, and like my buddy was coaching me, and he's a hard ass, so he was just like, "You suck, bro." Like he was just roasting me and stuff, and it used to hurt, like devastate me. But over time, like he started to be like, okay, he's getting it now. It really helped me build this mental fortitude just from that. And I can't even imagine now, me getting started in jiu-jitsu, how much my mental fortitude will grow as a result of it. Because it, like they always say, the cliche thing is like, it's like a chess match where you're like, you're reacting to your opponent's moves, and then you take, you take action upon that. And I really see that in it, even though I'm sitting there watching people and observing right now. I can see that, and I could see where that mental grit comes through, because you're sitting there for minutes at a time, just trying to get a submission on somebody. How does jiu-jitsu apply to the entrepreneurship, stuff, like towards your business and everything?
how does it apply? Well, it's more of an escape, really. Like I actually don't even like to go to my gym too much, even talk about my product that much to people. And some people find that weird and tell me I'm a bad salesman because of that. But to me, like my gym is my escape. If I'm on the computer, all the day, like I want to be able to go to the gym and I want to be able to fight without having to think about anything. I go there to kind of just forget everything, especially in New York City, where you go outside and someone's shitting on your fucking front porch, and there's some crazy guy yelling, and some car almost runs you over. It's a great going into a small space in a building that is positive, and everyone is there just to push themselves to get better, and just for an hour out of the day, forget everything. So, but in terms of apply to, lately, I think again, I think in terms of how you're going to react to things in your business. Um, I think, like I said earlier with the rejection of the customer, freaking about the customer, letting go, being more experimental with things, like eventually at some point, if you want to grow in jiu-jitsu, you need to be experimental at every belt and in every plateau. There's always there's that infamous jiu-jitsu plateau where it feels like you're not getting better. It can even feel like you're getting worse. So you just keep showing up, even though you feel like you suck, and your brain starts just making you experiment things. Like, your brain is just like, I'm going to try this, fuck it. And I think you need to do that obviously to get better. And I think that goes same with your business. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, it's very easy to feel stuck, to just give up, to think I got this far, I can't do it anymore. Oh, this business is just not destined to succeed. I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm not good enough. Only if I had more money, only if I had this. But no, you need to push past that plateau and experiment, see what's working. And I think maybe that aspect is what really applies to jiu-jitsu entrepreneurship, that experimental and pushing past the plateau, and just the daily grit, daily grind, especially in the beginning when you're hustling for 1 or 2 or 3 sales a day. And you're in that white belt, blue belt, purple belt stage where you're learning, everyone's trying to, it feels like everyone's just kicking your ass, and you're trying to figure out every little thing you can to get better. I think that's where it really applies. And I think I said it once too on my own podcast where, your white belt days is like the year that you're preparing to launch your business. Your blue belt days is kind of like when you're taking that first sale. And your purple belt days is when you realize how to get consistent sales for your one product. And your brown belt days is when you start unleashing all your other products that you want to sell and consistently selling. And then your black belt days in business is when you just have a system that works and you can step away from your business and let it run itself. And just like jiu-jitsu, that takes time, it takes hardships, it takes a lot of good coaching, mentorships, and friends and family. So I guess I could have just said that in the beginning.
No,
yeah.
that was actually a beautiful answer. Just that in-depth answer. I thought it was really awesome because I actually learned some insights from you saying that. I kind of realized some things for myself. So I'm pretty pumped up that you said that.
Hell yeah.
I wanted to ask you, in regards to like your mental health journey or any things that you're facing right now, what are some challenges that you currently are facing?
I think one of the hardest things is, as an entrepreneur, the social grind. It's tough because you're not on the same wavelength as majority of your peers at this point when you're doing something. And not to say that your peers are against you, but even the peers that do support you, like, they just don't, majority of them just don't understand. They don't understand. Why would they? And how can you expect them to? And you're not able to kind of live as normal of a life as maybe you should, especially when you're young in 20s and early 30s, where people are saying you should be going out and partying, having fun, which is fun. I love doing that. But you have to make sacrifices. Some weekends you have to, you can't go out every weekend sometimes. Sometimes you got to stay in and work. When there's people going out having fun on a Wednesday, Thursday night, you're inside staring at your freaking computer. But there's ways around it. I believe the better you get with your time, again, the better you figure things out. The universe, and the more positive you think throughout. I think actually, no, I scratched that. The hardest part about all this is remain positive throughout everything. So many stressors going through everything. It's hard being great. It's hard achieving something that's worthy of value. And I think a lot of people forget that nowadays. And a lot of people think life is supposed to be easy or should be easy. But life is not easy. Life is suffering. And you have to figure out something to suffer for. And that's why a lot of people are so unhappy and depressed nowadays, because they've been fed an illusion by the TV, by our politicians, by whoever they listen to, by the Snapchat news filter of some 20-year-old with $1 million, that life is easy and that it's supposed to be easy, but it's not supposed to be easy. Life has never been easy. Less than 80 years ago, there were people being thrown in concentration camps. There was World War II. There was an island, and Guam was being attacked by the Japanese. We live in probably the easiest time ever in civilization, And I think that's tricked a lot of people, that whenever they start facing stressors that were normal 80, 100 years ago, we don't know how to deal with it because we just have not been exposed to it. So that's my biggest problem, thinking that things are supposed to be easy and remain positive through normal everyday struggles that the universe is going to give to you regardless,
I love that,
and
man.
just remain positive throughout all.
I love it because like when you're talking about the stressors, I actually talked to Chris and my buddy Grant about this in our Mood Lifters call, where it's like, we're not exposed to as many stressors in our lives. And once we get like too comfortable and stuff, it's bad for us, because once a stressor hits us, it just devastates us. Whereas like if you use something like weight, like exercise, and even, mixed martial art of the sort, that's a stressor, right? But that stressor makes you stronger to handle other stressors in your life. And I've kind of learned that with any type of physical exercise, is like the stuff that happens in your everyday life. You beat these milestones in the gym, and then something comes at you that's out of the blue, and you're like, oh shit, I got to deal with this. Well, going through that gym session, you basically push so many boundaries, going into it regularly. This other stuff is so minuscule compared to that. But we need to expose ourselves to some level of stressors for us to really be able to handle unpredictable things in our lives. And that's some real stuff that you mentioned too, because I feel like social media is like one of those things. But I feel like that whole entire thing, like you said, that you find something that's worth suffering for, that will actually help you bypass all that noise, because you're not looking at them, you're focusing on you, and you're focusing on how you can best, so everyone else has their own path and stuff, but if we're able to really focus on ourselves and improve on ourselves, that's where the magic happens. And then everything else is just noise in the background. You're too focused on becoming the best you.
And I don't want to take a political sides here, and I'm not trying to get too political here, but I'll just say this. You could decide if you think it's not necessary, but I've always noticed something about fighters. Fighters are always against like socialistic policies of like handout money. They're always against it. And it's also very interesting to me because fighters don't make any money at all. You can be the best jiu-jitsu guy in the world. You can be broke as shit. You can be a world MMA champion, but still have to work a side job and work a side gig. And it always shocked me, and not shocked me, but it always intrigued me how they've always been against it, or at least seems like most of them, the popular ones, are so against policies of handout money and stuff, and you would think the opposite, because they have no fucking money. They make less money than probably most people. Charles Oliveira is, to me, he's the pound for pound best fighter in the world. He'll probably make $1 million fight, which is obviously $1 million, but if you're the best UFC fighter in the league, that's nothing compared to a big boxing fight for somebody who may not even know. But I'm just talking about your average Joe, like you're the best jiu-jitsu black belt in the world and barely make any money. And it's always made me think, because they know that you have to sacrifice and stress and really put yourself in these really, really, really uncomfortable situations. And they seem to hate these politicians and leaders who want to just give free handouts and comfortability to people, because they think that's not good for people mentally. That's in the long term, that lets people think that there doesn't need to be a sacrifice in life, that you don't need to sacrifice for what you want. There doesn't need to be a struggle for what you want. And it removes creativity. It removes strength, mental strength, like mental fortitude, and just that whole grind, I don't know. That's something that kind of always, when you talk about sacrifice, that kind of something that always I always thought about.
That's a pretty good point, because I've noticed that as well, especially like, people that incorporate physical activity too, is like, they focus on doing it for themselves. And it's a very tricky situation we're in, but I'm always all about that, the struggle, the grind. And, my mindset has always been like wanting more out of my life, but working towards it for myself, and like that whole entire thing with fitness and stuff, like I always gravitated towards that direction. And I think there's definitely some validity in that people can see that if they, and if they experience bouts of struggle, they get something in return. There's some benefits over time, and they work towards that, and they better themselves, and it helps them build this grit and mental fortitude. And it's a really interesting thing to think about. I've noticed, like with like depression and stuff, if you work towards improving yourself in some aspects of your life that are, you're deficient in, it starts to lessen. And I always say, like, to my guys when I'm training them and stuff, my clients, and then the people, my previous clients, and then the people in our Facebook group, is like, you got to get out there and get it and slowly build up from it. And it helps you build this stress resilience. It helps you, the depression lessons. You have something to work towards, and then you can kind of take that energy from the physical activity and then add it to everything else in your life. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you were saying, like, if you're in a stressful position, unhappy position, I agree. I completely agree with especially if you're a deep place, like baby steps, but consistently. And that's why, like, I'll even say to people who are like super, super new to jiu-jitsu, like, unless you're trying to be the next ADCC champ or trying to get your black belt right away, like in 4 to 5 years and be a phenom, like when you're starting off, like, and some may say this is wrong, but, and who am I to say this, but like, unless you're like want to compete, if you're just doing it to have fun and just to get out of your shell and do jujitsu just because you want to start learning it, take your time with it. There's no reason for me to think you got to start going 5 to 6 days a week, every day. Like, find a schedule that you can consistently do without burning yourself and your body out 3 times a week. I think that's the perfect for someone who's beginning, because it's a long-term game. It's a long-term game. And I know a lot of people who start doing it and they're like hooked, and they do it every single day, and then they burn out right away because they didn't respect the long-term game aspect of it. And that goes with depression too. It's a long-term game. But I absolutely agree that if you're depressed and you're anxious, you're stressed, fitness and your health is the first place to start. Health is wealth. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you see someone, I mean, health is wealth.
I think that's like the primary focus. I know like with a lot of depression, a lot of it can be, other stressors in your life, relationships, financial, and all that stuff. I really believe the health is the foundation. If you can improve your mental health, everything else can, improve upon it as a result. Like, you have a better mindset, you take bigger risks. You're working at this job that you're unhappy with, but you're scared to make the change. But then, you improve your health and stuff. You're like, why don't I take the initiative to get a better job for myself, and then jump out and go on, and then so on and so forth with everything else, relationship wise, you're trying to date people and stuff. It's like, if you start working towards physical activity, for example, you're getting stronger in the gym or whatever you do. And then you're like, maybe I should, ask her out. And then if I get rejected, it's all good. Like, life goes on, and I think that's so important, that health is definitely wealth.
And even to your point earlier about, one thing I do think that, like, I think the reason why lifting is the cornerstone is like the foundation for all workouts. Like, it's the one that's, whenever someone's like, oh, I got to start working out, I think the reason why majority of people are like, okay, you got to start lifting, before they say, oh, you got to do this, you got to do jiu-jitsu, you got to surf. Obviously do the sport that you're going to want to stick with long term. That's what I believe. But I think the great benefit about lifting, though, even though I'm not a huge fan of lifting itself, but I obviously recognize why it's the foundation, is because, especially for men, who are not healthy, lifting triggers that primal sense of masculinity and testosterone that you need as a man. You need that, and I think that's why a lot of people aren't happy, because they don't have that masculine grind, that drives a man, primarily. And lifting, it really does, I think, help a lot of men connect with that inner spirit of masculinity for themselves. And of course, you can get that in other places, like, jiu-jitsu. You can get that in surfing. But sometimes, though, I know some people who are like out of shape or unhappy or depressed, but they're like, oh, but all they do when they do work out is like, oh, I run. And it's like, running's cool, but if that's all you're going to do and you're unhappy, like, I never understood that, because it's like, you're not really, like, obviously it's better than doing nothing, but like, you're not going to get the same release of the hormones your body needs as if you were to put yourself in a stressful situation like lifting or jiu-jitsu. And that goes back to, what are you hiding from? What are you running from?
Mm-hmm.
You know, ironically, you know. So that's why I think lifting and sports like lifting and jiu-jitsu are actually good for men, because it puts you in that fight element, you
Yeah.
know, that a lot of people think is bad. A lot of people
Yeah.
think it's bad for them to be in a fight element. A lot of men have disconnected from, I think, that masculinity portion of themselves. Um, and not to sound too macho, because I'm really not, but like, you know, that's healthy for a man to at least understand, know how to either be strong enough to defend themselves, or at least technically how to defend himself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I feel you, dude. I was gonna say, like, touching up on the testosterone stuff. A lot of it, like, I've actually looked into this because I actually was gonna talk about this topic in the future, because people have been asking me about hormones and stuff and how they correlate to mental health. And with dudes, like, testosterone is key. Like, if you have low testosterone, you can have some depression. You can deal with some depression, and a lot of it, like, if you look at like research now, it's like testosterone levels are declining steadily, right? And that's a problem. And a lot of it is, and for people that are young too, in their 20s, and a lot of it is really that is like living more actively, eating more nutritiously, getting some sunlight exposure outdoors, you know, going outside, being a little bit with activity. Also, that whole entire thing that we're missing is, like, you know, even though we were talking about it in a combat sport perspective, it's competition. Like a competition, there's like research that says that competition actually helps elevate testosterone levels. It might not be acute in that, like, it's staying there for a long period of time, but it raises your testosterone levels during that brief period. And you can get that in like any type of competitive sport. And having that is very important. And, you know, we're like dudes are naturally competitive. Like, we always try to one up each other off the stupidest stuff. I feel like if you kind of work towards those natural tendencies and really work towards something like that. My brother does competitive powerlifting because he likes that competition aspect, and I like the jiu-jitsu aspect, and I'm always considering like going into it competitively because of this whole thing, and it seems exciting to me, and that's why I want to work towards it so bad. So,
And you'll get a lot better. I mean, you'll
oh
fucking,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, absolutely, man. You know, like, and I think this kind of whole the competition thing ties back to what we were saying earlier about, like, you kind of need to, life is suffering. You need to accept, and you need to have something worth suffering for, and don't give up when there's stressors or those depressors, you know, that make you want to. And for some people, the way they combat, you know, what pushes them is jiu-jitsu competitions. You know, that's their fucking dream. For some, it's entrepreneurship. For some, it's as simple as just getting a living wage that so they can take care of themselves, take care of their family. You know, and when we talk about like finding something to grind for, like, again, you know, we're not talking about being the fucking greatest entrepreneur or grappler of all time. You know, it's something where you can just, because obviously, like, everyone's gonna have their struggle. I think it's about just not giving up in the face of, um, you know, for example, let's say you have a family of four. You know, it doesn't, you know, and it's hard. I mean, sticking around and being a good father to them. You know, and having a job that takes care of your family. You know, that's what it's about. In understanding it's hard with a family. You know, it's, or having a relationship. You know, being married and thinking, okay, I've been married for a year. I don't like my wife anymore. You know, I'm leaving her. That, or hey, I need to realize marriage is not easy. I need to figure out how to actually make this work. You know, um, and I think that's what's respectable. You know, I think that's what's respectable. And I also think we live in a time where it's cool to be negative. And I've always thought this: we live in an era where it's cool to be negative. It goes back to even just the male being competitive. You know, there's a lot of people who, you know, I mean, the whole idea of toxic masculinity. Obviously, there's bad men so there's also bad women, right? But the idea of like toxic, aggressive, or assertive masculinity is bad. Like, it's bad because then you're making people feel bad for having natural male hormones, you know. And it would say the same if you know, it's like the same thing, but all girls are all pretty girls or something, are like bitches or something, you know. Same thing as saying that, you know, just those waves of negativity that cloud people, and people who want to hold other people down think it's cooler to be negative and mediocre than try to actually be the best version of yourself.
That's real, man. It's a good perspective to look at it, like a lot of negativity. I feel like it's just naturally in our culture. That's why it's like, you know, you look at it like the political news and stuff, it's always negative. That's why I'm always brushing, like, like I'll see it from time to time and it frustrates me, but it's like I got to be in my circle and be as positive as possible. You know, we talk about this too. Like my whole focus is like trying to be as positive as possible. And it's hard sometimes, but like everyone has their own things that they're battling. And I rather spread the positivity and just like congratulate people on their progress. When you post on social media, for example, you get some negative comments, but usually I just respond back with like a positive light. And then usually people are like more positive afterwards, or they'll apologize to me for saying something negative. And I'm like, I got to be that person. And it's same thing with customer service. Customers screaming at me, freaking out about what's going on. And I'm sitting there positive. I'm like, I'll fix it for you. No problem. They're not going to scream at me anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So.
No, and I think that's probably, and that's what separates, you know, the leaders from the rest. I think the long-term positive. And I think that's something you are great at, Tony. You know, even when I'm fucking pissed off or feeling negative, you always bring me down to earth. So I do appreciate that.
I appreciate it, bro. Since we're coming to close, I wanted to ask you, what can I help you with right now?
What can you help me with? Bro, everything you help me with all the day, man. And whenever I need help, you always help me. So I don't even,
yeah, you just let me know whenever you need help. I'm more than happy to help. Even if it's like mindset stuff, we can definitely talk into it. And I know you got me as well. So that's pretty awesome. And I always feel, you know, I always feel welcome when I'm talking to you and then talking to the, you know, Hunter as well. So, all right. Well, it was great talk. Awesome call. Is there anything you wanted to add to it? Anything you wanted to close with or anything along the lines of that?
Keep chasing your dreams. Whoever's listening. Never too late, never too old, never too young, never too anything. All you are is yourself. That's it. That's all you are is yourself. So be yourself.
Go ahead.
Oh, by the way, check out Blackbelt Nutrition on Amazon. So if you go on Amazon, we got all natural. Our slogan is no fake shit guaranteed. We have a protein bar made for jiu-jitsu and MMA fighters that's baked in MCT oil and high glycogen replenishing carbs that are going to give you that long-term energy to be sustained during your high intensity training so you don't gas out, along with kale and spinach and dark chocolate. That's going to help you your joints and help you with inflammation post-training. So go check it out, blackbeltnutrition.com. No artificial sweeteners, preservatives, tastes delicious, no fake shit guaranteed. Absolutely.
And in addition to that, I want to say that the fiber content is pretty good. So you'll get a good amount of fiber in, and it'll let you, you know, bowel movements are very important. You got to use the bathroom. So make sure you're getting proper fiber in. You guys know I talk about this all the time. And then, yeah, check out Rocco at blackbeltnutrition.com, or you can head on over to Amazon and purchase a protein bar. Show some love by leaving an honest review and all that. And then with that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll definitely see you in the next one.